couple of armchair GMs who have yet to be wrong with any of their Timberwolves takes. Right. It's Flagrant Howls with Phil Mackey and Kyle Theige.
You know, I'm not sure if you have. Wow, look at you. Actually, no, let's
down, baby. Let's go.
What do you? Is it white wine or what's your?
This is a Oregon Pinot Noir from the Willamette Valley from our friends over at Violin.
Okay. Well, I was today years old when I found out that Sunny D makes a vodka seltzer.
Oh, so, really? Let's just do the pot on that.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers to you. I'm going to take a sip, and then we're going to do something that we traditionally do on all other shows, but we just haven't had a chance with the Wolves here. Live on the Score North YouTube channel right now. Let's hit the music. That's right, Kyle. For the first time in 19 years, the Minnesota Timberwolves are playoff bound in back-to-back seasons. Celebrate, pop your champagne, whatever you need to do. And by the way, I don't want to give away too much of what we're going to talk about here. We're going to be live for, 30, 40 minutes. I see Judd in the green room here. We're going to bring Judd in from Courtside in just a second here. But I think the Nuggets have a problem on their hands. And maybe it's just me wildly overreacting to some Timberwolves games recently, not counting the Lakers game. But that looked like a team tonight that had patched everything up from the punch heard around the country. A team that, I'll say this, that team moved the ball with more purpose and less selfishness than we've seen. I mean, they did it a couple times a couple weeks ago, but if they move the ball that way and play defense like that, Denver's got a problem. The 1 seed has a problem. I don't
know. I am so not prepared for this. I don't know where you want to start, but I will say that there was I think you talked about this on Mackey and Judd. There was a fork in the road moment, because you've been this disappointing team all year, and you've been the most frustrating season I can remember covering. Maybe the same for you. And you came into a game where you're playing one of the youngest teams in the league that has all their picks, and you're one of the older-ish teams in the league with no picks, and the smallest team in the league, and you're probably the biggest team in the league, even without Jaden, without Nas.
Yeah.
And if this whole 2022-23 regular season would have been ended at the hands of 5 guards as you built this Twin Towers Target Centers thing,
yeah.
Now I think we're fine, but I never thought Chris Finch was going to go, but the seat of someone would have been so hot.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
So hot.
This win, you get to now continue the experiment that you're not quite sure about, right? No one is still really sure. Can Rudy play with Cat? Can Ant play with 2 7-footers? And they're also playing shorthanded, and they're playing an 8-man rotation that should probably be a 7-man rotation based on the way that our guy J-Mac has been. J-Mac is it's like the movie Space Jam. All of his backup point guard superpowers have been taken away. But
that calf thing, I don't know. No one's really said it, but he always had just that little extra burst. He reminded me of Minnie Mouse. He was such a pest, and I don't know if that's the case why he's kind of not been able to be himself. But if it's not the case, then he is a great kid, but he is unplayable. Tonight, I was half a bottle in. I was texting my friends, if you're gonna try to find a backup point guard for 2 minutes, and you don't want to put Kyle out there, or Nah needs a break, or Mike's out, put Wendell Moore in. Because he'll defend too. We've seen Wendell Moore. They started him against Morant earlier in the season, but that's I think where you start before we bring Judd in. And rightfully so, the Piranhas were ready to pounce on this season if they would have lost this game on national TV after blowing the Lakers game to the smallest team and the whole, the punch heard around the world thing. And you might not like to hear this, and you might be like, hey, I can't believe we're celebrating playoff series or whatever, but yeah, actually that's what we're doing.
This is kind of where the organizational bar is. The Vikings have been around for 60 plus years.
Right.
They've done everything there is to do. Look at you. You're just not even pouring it in a glass. You're just
No, dude, it's all from the bottle, baby.
Let's bring him in here. He's courtside right now at Target Center. He is Mr. Hoops himself. Judd Zulgad on this Friday night. You had a front row seat, or I don't know what row you were in media row, but you had a very close seat. Not quite as close as A-Rod and Mark Laurie, who were shown on TV a million times. But what was the vibe like? This is exactly what I think people have been this might have been one of their most complete performances of the season. You can probably fairly say that. Yeah, best win of the season.
First of all, continued shout out to Wolves fans. They've been fantastic, like all year long. I don't think on enough how great Wolves fans have been. They packed this place tonight. The upper deck out. There were no tarps off, so you had a capacity crowd here. It was a loud crowd. Late start Friday. It was a party. So congratulations, because Wolves fans have put up with a lot, including both of you, and it's fun to see the excitement in this building that was generated. Exactly. Look at Taggy's just, God, are you going to wake up with a headache tomorrow? Kyle's just going to be like, oh, what happened did the Wolves win? What happened?
What happened last night? Why am I sweating?
How did the truck hit me? I don't understand. But no, this was impressive, and I will say this. What I liked tonight was, for the most part, OKC never felt like they were in this game. Like they never felt, I shouldn't say that. Fortunately, Phil, Gilgeous-Alexander is certainly a good player, but 5 of 19 from the field tonight. He ends up with 22 points because he was 12 of 12 from the line, 0 for 1 on his 3-point shots. And here's where this is a very weird thing to say about the Wolves, but I'd be curious to get your guys' reaction to it. Here's where I felt this game at some point in time became loser-proof for the Wolves, which is a very odd statement. It's this. They use their physicality and size to beat down OKC and so they never went to, like when the game was close, it never became, well, can they make their 3-point shots? Like, can they make their outside shots? Whenever there was trouble, the Wolves basically said, we're going to pound the ball inside to Cat, who, by the way, on the evening had 2 fouls, okay? So, I mean,
wow.
What a difference that makes.
Wow. Actually, you know what?
Yep.
Run it back, baby.
28 points, 11 boards. Gobert, 21 and 10, Ant, 19 and 10. But the fact was, this game never came down to, can the Wolves make their outside shots? Because every time OKC threatened them, basically they just pounded the ball into the paint and made easy baskets. And look, OKC's not a big team. They're certainly not a physical team, but that's a good game plan. And this was not one of the, 10 games that the Wolves lost where they were playing a clearly inferior team and found a way to blow it.
Yeah,
this was not that.
It was also not one of the 19 blown double-digit leads. And I'll say this, like, almost every time they've had a double-digit lead this season, for that reason, I've been kind of like, I don't know about this. No. And I'm going to tattle on Kyle. I sent Kyle the sort of like, all right, I sent him like the Denver better be on watch notice text with like 3 minutes left, and the Wolves are up by 25 points, and Kyle's like, I'm still worried about this game. So
I said I'm the thing that Score North hates, is I'm not sure I'm comfortable yet, and I know that they won by 25, and I'm still a little nervous. But yeah. Judd, one more time, how loud was it? Was it like a confident fan base in the arena, or like, what was it like? Okay,
it got pretty confident. Yeah.
Okay.
And look, the Wolves, for one of probably the rare times during the course of this season, gave the fan base no reason not to be. And the thing too is, and this is what's been frustrating about this team, is when they put it together, they've got talent. Like, this is not the years of non-playoff teams that were just a woe-begone franchise, right? So like tonight, you saw it. And again, I actually think of all the stats that I'm looking at on the monitor right now, you guys, I think the key stat is K Towns, 2 personal fouls.
Yeah.
It's a sneaky stat. It is. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, he said it in his post-game press conference after that Lakers game. He said, well, when I have 5 fouls, I don't want to. He basically said I had 2 options when I got to the 5th foul in the 4th quarter. I can initiate offense and inevitably someone flops and commit, my 6th foul, or I can just kind of go into a shell and not do anything. And there's got to be a middle ground. But for him, like the first option is just don't get into foul trouble. And you see when he feels like he can just go out and play. And by the way, he did not look tense tonight. He did not look uptight or like he was trying to do too much. There was a couple times there was an and one. I think it was in the third quarter, and he hits a shot, gets fouled. And he's just got this super confident wry smile on his face, and he's looking at the fans in the front row, and he does the one, like he does the 1, 2, and then the 3 and the and one. It's about as confident and comfortable as I've seen Cat in a big game. You've seen him on a Tuesday night in January or February, but in these big games, and this is what you haters like me, so to speak, have been begging for. It's like it's not good enough to just be really good in the first half and then, oh my God, I get into foul trouble and what am I supposed to do, right? No, like this right now, this franchise runs through Karl-Anthony Towns. And tonight was one of his best performances. I'd have to go through and I'd have to comb through like the Memphis series. He had a couple great games in that Memphis series in and around the clunkers. But if you take all of his playoff games and all of his play-in games, this is one of the best big game performances in Karl-Anthony Towns' career. And he deserves huge credit for what happened, coming off that fourth quarter overtime debacle against the Lakers.
I want to ask both of you, because this whole thing started with a shocker. I had no idea that Nickeil would start alongside Mike Conley in the backcourt. I don't know if you knew this, but Nickeil Alexander-Walker is cousins with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They only said it 64 times in the first half on the call.
So what, all hyphenated NBA players are cousins? Is that
he was fantastic, though. Talk about foul trouble. SGA had I think 3 early in the second. I think he ended up with 5. He was just in a weird spot all game, couldn't be aggressive, but every time the Wolves would score, Na would just go find SGA. Before the ball was inbounded, he was just basically marked him the whole court up and down. And that was a pretty heady move by Finch, because Prince just couldn't guard him. That's just not a guy that Prince wants to guard. So shout out. We've been critical, right? All three of us of Chris Finch this season, but that was a monumental move to kind of put his watered down dollar store Jaden McDaniels in the starting lineup and just say, go guard SGA. Just that's all you got to do.
So do you think it was because I think it was equal parts? Let's change something up in the starting lineup and let's put him on SGA. But I also think it was okay. We have a really short bench and rotation. Let's bring a sure thing off the bench in Kyle Anderson to lead the second unit. And Kyle Anderson winds up playing the 32 minutes he was going to play anyway. He would have played 32 minutes whether he started or not. But I kind of love that. Okay, you got enough leaders and guys in the starting lineup. Kyle Anderson's value, I think, and tonight was a great example. And my guess is they do the same thing against Denver. His value is heightened even more when he comes in with that second unit.
Yep. That's
so depleted, right? All right, we needed to just be the organizer of, and really, the second unit winds up being 20 minutes of Taurean Prince and 7 disastrous minutes of Jordan McLaughlin. So it's not like he's leading 4 other guys on a second unit, but I think it made a lot of sense from that perspective too.
And he played great. And the thing too is that I think the Wolves did, to Kyle's point, I think they did a very good job tonight, strategy-wise. They had a very coherent game plan that actually exploited the Thunder's weaknesses almost immediately, which I don't know that the Wolves have done as consistently as you would probably like to see. Because again, I'll go back to my point. This is a talented team. The bench is not deep now, and watching Jalen McDaniels with a cast on his hand and Nas sit there certainly hurts. It's going to be very difficult to win a series against the Nuggets, but this play-in game tonight, I thought, was a really well-coached game, well-played game. And Phil, back to your point on Cat too. Aside from the fourth quarter against the Lakers and OT, when we know Cat disappeared because he basically played so passive because he was concerned about his foul trouble, I will say this as far as the steps go, because I've spent the past week certainly being critical of Cat. But, when you think about it, the Lakers game for 3 quarters, he was damn good. And tonight, he was great. And a year ago, in the one playoff game that they won against the Clippers, D'Angelo Russell saved them because Cat was terrible.
Yeah.
So I will say there's a maturity that we have seen essentially for 7 quarters of the 9+ that have been played or so, that Karl-Anthony Towns has shown you something that I think a lot of us were questioning at times. And if I'm not mistaken, too, he got off to a rough series against the Grizzlies, right? And then came back and had a couple great games. But, there was a consistency here for the most part, aside from his passive play in the fourth quarter in Los Angeles, that I think we were I think it's gratifying to see it.
I'm with you. I was also just thinking, too, about Finch. He took that challenge in the second quarter, which was like, what are we doing? Like, it's not, like, that's not a time you challenge. But it just seemed like, for all this stuff, Phil, that you and me and Judd have criticized, he was going to micromanage this one. Like, he was like, I'm not going to be as, Phil Jackson-esque and letting my guys figure it out there.
Yeah, because they can't like, sometimes.
There was a moment, I think they were up 14, and, like, OKC scored, like, a pretty easy basket to make it 12, and Finch was immediately timeout. Like, he was not going to let go of the rope this time, and that's what you were going to have to do in this playoff series coming up against the Nuggets is just and also, too, back to your point, they can't play 7 guys. I know we're kind of looking ahead now. They're going to have to unearth someone on that bench because I don't think you can just play 7 guys because at some point you're going to have foul trouble. At some point you're going to lose a guy. So no Jalen Noel tonight, who I think was hurt, but maybe you'll see one of the young guys get a little run, but all in all, good performance. I mean, Kyle Anderson was a team high 20 plus 25 off the bench. So to your point, Phil, just he just sets the table. And what if you can have a lead and bring Kyle Anderson in? He's like a closer. I mean, he's not going to give up runs. He's not going to be a minus player. So all around, one of Finch's probably better games he's coached in his 3 years here.
Yeah, this is if I'm Denver, man, I mean, obviously Denver's going to be confident, and they've got Jokic, who's one of the best players in the world, the reigning defending 2-time MVP. But boy, if I'm Denver and if I could be honest with the world, I really wanted Oklahoma City to win this game because I think Denver takes care of Oklahoma City pretty easily.
Yep.
If the Wolves play, and the Wolves can play like this, and we've seen them play. Again, this is probably the best they've played, considering they're shorthanded too, over the last month or so. But if the Wolves bring their A game in a 7-game series to 4 or 5 of the games, I'm telling you guys, and I promise it's not the Sunny Delight vodka seltzer.
I'm not so sure about that. But keep going.
If the the caveat is if the Wolves bring their A or A minus game, Denver has a problem in a 7-game series. The Wolves beat Denver twice this season, and Denver's not your prototypical number 1 seed. If all teams were healthy and playing at a peak level in the West, Golden State's better, Phoenix with Kevin Durant is better. So you're kind of getting a fake number 1 seed here too. Again, like Denver's the favorite, but I'm just saying this, like, for the Wolves to punch their ticket tonight and look like this, if they have found something in the wake of the Kumbaya meetings after the Rudy Gobert, by the way, Kyle Anderson threw at least a couple lobs for alley-oops to Rudy Gobert in that game tonight.
Slow-mo, actually, when Gobert in the second half embarrassingly airmailed the free throw, and the fans started audibly laughing and sort of not mock cheering being mean, but it's like, oh my God, the guy just missed the rim entirely. Yeah. It was Slow-mo who stood there and tried to quiet the crowd and basically say, get behind my guy.
Dude, so they're all gelling. Kevin Garnett tweeted it. He said, hey, a little scuffle like this before the playoffs, get everyone on the same page.
Here's the most important thing, though. You're going to have to, if you are going to have a chance, just a chance against the Nuggets, you're going to have to get a game from Cat every game like you did tonight.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like that's the one thing that can't sway.
But if you think about it too, and I still I stand by everything I said about his fourth quarter overtime against the Lakers because it fits the previous 3 playoff losses where he just we did the math on it. If you count the play-in loss to the Lakers and then the last 3 losses to Memphis in that playoff series, Cat played 44 minutes in the fourth quarter overtime in those 4 games. He made 4 shots, committed 6 fouls. You have to be better in those situations. But if you look at the 2 playing games in totality, he played 7 awesome quarters.
Yep.
So change if you can just don't bring your F game in the fourth quarter of a big game, right? Don't get into foul trouble. Right. So it's not that much to just play like Cat, but avoid some of the dumb stuff. And he did tonight. And it was basically a playoff game tonight.
Before Judd got on, Phil, we were talking about how, this was a classic, 110% of the pressure was on the Wolves. The Thunder don't have to do anything. They don't have Chet. They have all these picks. They're the youngest, second youngest team in the league. There was no pressure.
They've achieved way more than anyone ever thought going into tonight.
Their win projections for the season was like 24 or something. So no pressure. All the pressure on the Wolves. They won. And now, as we've talked about Phil for like 3 weeks, it completely flips. And I don't care if you want to be like, we need to have higher expectations for Minnesota. I'm with you on that too. But the Nuggets like can't lose in the first round. They can't like some of these teams now that have had these long regular seasons of success. Like if the Nuggets lose in the first round, like if they lose game 1, that team is going to get crushed nationally. Jokic is going to get crushed nationally. So that's why I kept just saying, just get in, right? Like it sucks not to have Jaden, not to have Naz. Naz really plays well against Denver, but now you can just kind of go back to Finch being a weird scientist. Like try some stuff out. Throw Josh Minot out there for a couple minutes. Yeah. Play big, play small. Try to outrun them if you can, because they're not the fastest team in the league. I mean, again, this experiment still needs to pay off down the road, but with the cards you have now, playing 7 guys, like the Wolves are going to go into that series underdogs, and that's going to put the pressure on Denver, and that's when the Wolves are kind of at their best sometimes, when everyone just expects they're going to get crushed. When you have high expectations, they let you down, and when you don't, they kind of impress you. So that's been the tale of the season.
Kyle, so let's say they keep the same starting 5. Taurean Prince comes off the bench. Kyle Anderson comes off the bench. I don't play J-Mac at this point.
You got to get Jalen Noel and just see, like, I don't know what his knee is because it's been so weird, but he played, the other night, and he looked kind of okay. He played against the Lakers, I think.
But who are your other two? Like, if you sit J-Mac and let's say you want to play a 9-man rotation, who are your other two? It's Jalen Noel, and do you give Josh Minot like 6 minutes?
I would give him 6 minutes. I know we've joked for a whole year about how much we like him, but you don't know what he is. Like,
Dude, it can't be worse than J-Mac.
Exactly, and like
different position, but I mean,
but you're bringing Kyle off the bench. Like, you want to have Kyle or Mike on the floor, basically 48 minutes to run point and keep adults on the floor to tell the kids where to go. So that's why it's not going to be Austin Rivers. It's not going to be probably Nate Knight. Like, just throw Josh into something for 6 minutes and see, like, can he cause Aaron Gordon problems? Can he defend Michael Porter Jr.? Just kind of spice it up a little bit. Because, again, now the tables have turned that all the pressure is on Minnesota on Friday, but on Sunday, all the pressure is on the home seed and the number 1 seed in the West.
Mm-hmm.
What's the key, too, for against Denver especially? What's the key for the Towns Gobert combination here? Like, what can you do? How do you, because if you can go in there and get game 1, I think it changes. Like, that to me is the curveball, and then you get Denver certainly a little bit on its heels. So what's the key for Cat and Gobert to be as effective as possible? Because I feel like if that combination can work, it changes things completely. If it doesn't work out, it's going to get to be, I mean, you're probably going to lose game 1 then, and then you're back a little bit on your heels at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I just think they have to play big. I mean, that's all they have left right now, right? Even without Jaden and Naz. You're not going to get crushed in transition by Denver because Jokic is not necessarily Usain Bolt out there running up and down the floor. So you just got to play big. And like Judd said too, you need just big games from Karl because we don't know. I mean, Ant was really good tonight, 19, 10, 6, and 2. But, I mean, that's still not Ant, right? I mean, he's averaging 25 on the season. So if Karl can lead them in scoring and you can get – I mean, I remember – I think it was this season or last season where Ant had like 9 threes against the Nuggets one night in Denver. And also, too, like Ant has shown in these playoff matchups, like he loves to get up for these TNT games, these ESPN games. So you're just going to have to lean hard into your 2 best players now and then just hope that Rudy and Karl can play 48 minutes without fouling out against Jokic because there's still a pretty big talent gap now when you don't have Jaden and when you don't have Naz.
Dude, this is I mean, it's the Tim Connelly series, right?
I will say one housekeeping thing we got to discuss now as we they give up all these picks. Year 1, probably a disappointment. They make the playoffs, but still a disappointment. But oh my God, is my June saved because I don't have to worry about the lottery. Because if the Wolves lose tonight, they would have given the Jazz like a 1.7% chance to move up in the draft and win the lottery. The Wolves are not in the lottery. That first pick in the Gobert thing is not a lottery pick. I'm going to have the best summer ever.
Yeah. So the absolute like worst case disaster is avoided. 2 quick house cleaning things, Judd. If you could turn your mic up a couple ticks.
Of course.
I mean, we're 25 minutes in here and we're drinking Sunny Delight vodkas for God's sake, so it doesn't.
Judd, if you could be professional, Phil and I just get drunk.
It's a little
How's that?
quiet. I mean, that's probably better. Yeah.
Better, okay.
But and the other thing too is for the people in here. Wow, there's just hundreds of people in here right now, just at midnight after the Wolves clinch the 8th seed. If you could click the subscribe button and the like button on the Score North YouTube channel that you're watching on here, it would help us spread the word on Flagrant Howls and at Score North about this awesome Wolves fans community, this awesome Wolves fan community that you guys are helping us build here. So thank you for riding with us all season long on Flagrant Howls. We're going to continue not only through the postseason, but we're going to continue all throughout the offseason with Reckless Speculation season. But it is the Tim Connelly series. And so my next question for you guys, we'll start with Judd on this one. All right, so they finished 42-40, which is 4 fewer wins than last season. But Karl-Anthony Towns also missed like 50-some games or whatever. So you can always kind of hang your hat on that and say, well, but Cat was out. He's, our most talented player. So they go down in the regular season, but they at least get back to pretty much the same spot they were last year, which is get into the playoffs and take a swing at a 1 or a 2 seed. Would you say that this has been a step back if they don't beat the Nuggets? Or do you think it's sort of, all right, well, they kind of weathered a weird storm in the regular season, and at least the franchise is moving ahead here with back-to-back playoff? Like, how do you assess, after this massive trade almost a year ago, where we're at now going into the first round of the playoffs?
Well, I think so far it's safe to say that it was underwhelming for sure. Like, yes, Cat missed time, but there were a lot of things that didn't work. And look, this team, because of its talent, and rightfully so, I think a lot of people had expectations that they wouldn't be a play-in team, that these 2 games wouldn't have been necessary, that they would have been seeded high enough to advance straight to the playoffs, therefore beginning play tomorrow. So I would say right now, underwhelming. I think there's still a lot of unknowns, which is troubling. That's partially because of guys being hurt, and it's partially because things didn't work as expected. I mean, having to trade, and it's been a good trade, but having to trade D'Lo was not probably part of the plan. I think there was an expectation that Ant and Cat would work, that D'Lo and Gobert would work, and certainly one of those blew up and didn't work at all. So underwhelming would be the word that I would use. That being said, with the playoffs starting now, there is a chance to right that. Because if you can, I mean, I hate to say this, but it's the Wolves. So partially, depending on how you look in the playoffs, that's going to be important. If you lose in 4 games and look like crap, then yes, the whole thing looks like it didn't work well. If you can win a couple games, I mean, heck, if you push Denver, that's going to change the perception. But I would describe, Kyle, the regular season as underwhelming and disappointing compared to what we, I think, rightfully so expected.
Yeah, I have no counter to that. I mean, it was Phil, I was telling you a couple weeks ago when I would look up like on Spotify or whatever, I'd look at our podcast like history, and it was like one was really happy, and then the next one we were firing someone, and then the next one we were drinking, and then the next one we were like moving out of town. So totally frustrating season. I mean, again, it goes back to what you guys kind of set up all week, Phil. We talked about it too. This was a razor or kind of a fork in the road moment. If you lose this game, you're gonna get crushed, and everyone will deserve it, and someone probably gets let go or moved or whatever. But now you win it, and now all you had to do was get in. I said it after the Lakers. I mean, the Lakers win would have been great because then I wouldn't have had to drink and stress tonight, and Judd could have stayed home. But I just think they match up better with Denver. I know if Memphis is down a couple big guys, but I just think you want to go into Denver now and just play fearless. Finch said tonight post game, they got to extend the rotation a little bit. And if you even give Josh Minott 8 minutes of meaningful playoff basketball, I think that's important. I think 5-6 more games for Ant in the playoffs is important. So these guys don't have, like Phil said, it's one of Carl's most important games of his career. That's not great because he's 27, and it's for the play-in game. But you need those reps because the last time you thought of Carl in the play-in game, it was the Lakers kind of collapse or it was the Clippers collapse. He was awesome tonight, and you just need those reps because it's hard to win in the league. OKC showed it tonight. Young teams don't win, and you just need the young kind of foundation of this team. Ant, one-arm Jaden on the bench, Carl. You need those guys to get reps if you're going to try to build this thing out now in year 2 and year 3.
Yeah. By the way, so I'm just reading some of the quotes from the post-game in the locker room here. Mike Conley is speaking to, or recently spoke with reporters. So it's been confirmed by Chris Finch that it was Tim Connelly's idea. So Dane Moore was the first to float this one, our guy Dane. It was Tim Connelly's idea to start Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Chris Finch said, okay, I like it, let's do it. And it worked. So interesting. And Mike Conley said, quote, Nickeil is one of the hardest working guys I know. He's probably been waiting for this moment for a long time, playing against his cousin. He was texting when they were playing in New Orleans about what guys like to do. He was really locked in. So that's the thing. I mean, and you saw, and Judd, we were talking about this on the Lakers postgame show. Like, I was all ready for the Flagrant Howls live episode after the first playing game to be just a celebration of the Mike Conley trade. Holy cow. Mike Conley was one of the best players on the floor for 40 minutes, and D'Lo is watching from courtside with the rest of the celebrities as Dennis Schroeder takes his spot in that game. And of course they lost, so we really couldn't do that episode. But again tonight, like Mike Conley, and Mike Conley wasn't the offensive star because he didn't need to be. Mike Conley was the adult. He was the energy spark. He understands tempo and pace and leadership and all those things. And they also got Nickeil Alexander-Walker and 2 second-round picks in the same trade.
3?
I mean, it's for 3 second-round picks.
Yep.
In the same trade. And so, and rightfully so, we spend so much time focused on the Gobert trade. But Tim Connelly's second blockbuster trade looks like a heist for the Timberwolves that helped them get to the playoffs, which obviously is great.
Remember what I said when it happened, Phil? I was like, all jokes aside, Danny Ainge has been just revered for how he rebuilt Utah already by trading out 2 superstars and getting just all these picks and really, good players, Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkanen. But it was really weird that he would do that deal with Minnesota. Like, if you're a basketball person, you're like, why are you going to give the Wolves better players that fit their roster more, and Mike Conley and Nah, these picks? Like, that was a really turning point. I know D'Lo had a hot January, but if you think the Wolves were going to do this with D'Lo after the trade deadline, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, again, proof is in the pudding. He was benched by the Lakers against the Wolves the other night. So that was you'll probably never, ever make up for the Rudy Gobert trade just by how much you paid for it, but that Conley deal, again, pretty much just saved your season and saved year one of this massive experiment.
And I think Conley also still shows that there is always going to be room for professional point guards.
Yeah.
Like, because that's what he is. He's an adult, but I mean, he is a professional point guard. He knows exactly what his role is. He never tries to get outside of that. Like, how many times does he do something and you're like, that was really stupid? I mean, he might take a few ill-advised shots at times, but it's very, very small. I mean, D'Lo did nightly things, and some of them were great, but sometimes you'd be like, that was still pretty stupid. And Conley just brings a calmness, a captain-like influence. And, for all that this team has everybody and their brother saying, I have to lead. It's up to me. I'm the one who's talking, right? Yeah. Mike Conley doesn't really say that. Do you know what he does? He just does it. His stabilizing.
We got a pizza burning in the oven downstairs.
Uh-oh.
We've talked about D'Lo too long. The fans are coming for us.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, hell, just don't bring up Kirk Cousins and we'll be fine. But the thing about it is Conley just brings a stabilizing influence, and you could see it tonight. And the other thing is, for the most part, a lot of times if things start to go wrong, that really does help. Now, the problem is if things start to go wrong with Cat, he sort of outweighs. It gets to be dicey there. But in this series, despite the fact that the rotation, because they're without McDaniels and Nas, is limited, I think it's fair to say this. There's 3 guys, in my opinion, that I need to see really step up and play great. Karl's the first one. There's no question about that. Mm-hmm. I need more from Ant than they got tonight. He had 19 points, 8 of 19 from the field, 10 boards, 3 for 8 from three-point range. So a nice game, but I need more than that. And Gobert. Like, this is where you're going to have to rely on those 3 guys, especially to say, we need everything from you. And it can't be in game 1, 4, and 6 or something, right?
Yep.
I mean, those are the 3 guys, and I think it goes Karl, Ant 2, Gobert 3, where we need consistency. We need to see consistency, and we cannot have, like, off nights. Oh, whoops, I didn't have a good game.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I disagree a little on Ant's performance tonight. There were a few. I think there was a few moments where he kind of killed the ball movement. Which that's one of the biggest things with his game is he just gets into the all right. It's me versus the world on offense on this possession, or he does the it's my turn thing sometimes where they'll have 5 great ball movement spin cycle possessions, and now it's my turn, and it just will like kind of break the flow. But if you told me, all right, he's 8 for 19, a little inefficient, but he's going to go for 19, 10, 6, couple steals, play pretty good defense, play with energy for 39 minutes, like I would generally take that. But this was a huge step up from that Lakers performance.
Yeah.
Which is the lowest bar you could ever set if you're Anthony Edwards. So if he gives you something like this in most of the Denver games, I would take it. But I also agree that there's even more that he can give, and we've seen it. I also think he was icing his hand apparently after the last game, and he fell on his neck and his head, and you got to wonder like how close to 100% is he? Is he like 60%, 80%?
How's
but he just kind of plows through it. Cat.
The cat wrist thing was weird. Judd got like caught up in like on a rebound or whatever.
Okay.
But then obviously Judd was there. Like he kind of ran off to the locker room and came back, and I don't think it really bothered him. I never saw him shaking it again, but it was like anytime you hear Karl and wrist, you think, Kevin Love and knuckle push-ups. You're like, oh, my God, again, do we have something going on? But he looked okay.
Knuckle push-ups.
Knuckle push-ups.
Yeah.
Knuckle
I will
push-ups.
say the stat of the like if you're picking a box score, Phil, like one of the stats that stood out to me was Rudy Gobert 9 for 14 from free throws. That was massive because, again, they just played to their size, as Judd was talking about. And, if he can split a pair every time he goes there and just get you a point, that's not great, but at least it's not nothing. But 9 for 14, he just – every time they needed a point or to kind of stem a little run, he would just pin a guy under the basket, and he was, other than that air ball one, he was phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, let's go around the room one last time here. And by the way, thank you again for everyone who's hanging out with us here on the Score North YouTube channel, this live edition of Flagrant Howls as the Timberwolves punch their ticket, literally punch their ticket to the playoffs. In back-to-back seasons for the first time in almost 20 years. So, Joe, we'll go to you first here, because you're kind of closing it down right now at Target Center, Media Row. So we're going to give you your last take here. Your biggest takeaway, either looking at this game or looking ahead. What's your final take here?
My final take is this. I'm checking the stats out right here. Points in the paint, 58-30 Wolves, okay? So 58 points in the paint. The Wolves did a great job tonight of doing everything that they had to do against an opponent they should have beaten, but with the way their season has gone, we had no confidence necessarily that they were going to. So I think they did a good job. This OKC team, I think, is going to be really good eventually. I mean, they have some talent. They're going to get more talent. They can play a fast game. I think they tried to play a little bit too fast at times tonight, and it actually helped out the Wolves. But I'm with Kyle. I think as far as Chris Finch goes, this is one of the better games that he's coached too. Like as far as the strategy, they exploited it, and OKC, had real problems shooting at times. But that's also a credit to the Wolves defensively. So. This is certainly a high point of Timberwolves, not playoff games, but of Timberwolves games that have followed regular seasons. Right now, this is a high point. The Clippers win in the single playoff game was fun, but if you recall, Cat stunk, and that went down to the wire too. This was the type of game where you felt at halftime, okay, come out there and continue the beatdown, basically, right? So like come out here and win by 25. Like there's no rule that says it has to be a 5-point game. And the Wolves did, and the Wolves get full credit. I don't care who the opponent is for doing exactly that. So kudos to them.
Yeah. So we'll let Judd go here. They're going to sweep Judd off the Target Center floor.
Gentlemen,
appreciate you, sir.
Be safe. Walk to your beds safely. I know there's alcohol involved. I don't want anyone to fall face first or get hurt. I know you're celebrating. Kyle, congratulations on a huge win. The Wolves aren't drinking champagne, but damn it, you are, and that's all that matters. See you guys.
There he is. All right, Judd Zulgad, Mr. Hoops himself, the sports dad, Judd Zulgad from Target Center. So, all right, same thing for you. What's your sort of biggest takeaway or your final take here on this live Flagrant Howls?
We've joked about this. I think this was one of the 10 biggest wins in Timberwolves franchise history.
I mean,
we can go through the other 9, but what I'm saying that
hard for me to fight you on that.
And again, it's a play-in game. I can't believe you're getting all jacked up about the 8 seed. Yeah, no, I understand that. Because this allowed you to prevent yourself. I don't know if the too big thing's going to work, and that's the importance now of doing it against maybe the best big man in the league, him or Embiid or whatever. I don't know if it's going to work, but now we're going to get to see it, and that was the whole problem all season long with not having Karl around, is that you invested in this experiment that, yes, was supposed to accelerate the development of Ant and Jaden, but it also was built around kind of Karl's window and Karl's prime. And now you get 4, 5, 6, 7, hell, maybe more games of that. And it doesn't create a reactionary thing where, again, we've both been hard on Chris Finch, but I think losing this game and firing Chris Finch would have been a massive mistake. Just because I just don't know how many other good coaches are out there. I don't know who you're going to bring in that's better. So this allows you, and Phil, you said it better than I can, to kind of continue the experiment, not make a panic decision. I think ownership and maybe some of the things they did last summer were panic decisions or like feeling themselves a little too bit with their shoes off. Now you can kind of be a normal franchise, go play playoff games, see how your young stud performs, see how your 27-year-old kind of all-NBA guy performs, and then make better decisions down the road. The NBA, you need as much data as possible to make decisions. And now the Wolves will give themselves 2 more weeks of data to try to figure out the next step of all of this.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, a loss in this game would have opened the door for so many questions. And I think rightfully so. Because and I get that there's always the Cat excuse of like, well, Cat missed 50 games. But even with the games Cat played in, they were like 500.
Yeah.
And so it would have opened the door for a lot of just questions. And now they get a series and a blank canvas here. There's no rule saying that. I mean, think about half the teams in the Western Conference playoffs underachieved in the regular season for injury reasons, or like the Warriors couldn't win on the road. They won 8 road games or whatever, 9 road games all season. So there's a lot of teams that just underachieved in the regular season. And now you all have a chance to do some damage, make a run. We've been saying this, dude, when they were 6 games under 500 or whatever, or not, maybe it wasn't that. Was it 5 games under 500 after the New Year's Eve loss to the Pistons?
Yeah, we were saying something. Yeah, that was. But
even like after that, I feel like my personal thought was, well, this is kind of a disaster. But really, if they can just get to the playoffs, the Western Conference is kind of it's just weird up and down. And they can make some noise in the first round or win a first-round playoff series, they could still take a step forward this year. And all of that is still in front of them. So my 2 biggest takeaways are everything is still in front of them.
Yep.
They're not championship contenders. But, dude, they can beat the Nuggets in a 7-game series.
And if they do, I don't know what the series price will be. I'm guessing the Wolves will be, pretty heavy dogs just because it's 8 versus 1. Everything people have criticized, both locally and nationally this season, are good. Like, I get it. I said it from a tarmac in Cancun, Mexico, 9 months ago. That was, I don't know if I want Rudy Gobert. If Tim Connelly leaves the Nuggets for Minnesota and Minnesota beats the Nuggets in the first round, I will get arrested. I don't know what else to tell you. I just will. Can you imagine the 180 narrative of all of that if this all wraps up this year with Rudy Gobert stopping 2-time MVP Nikola Jokic and Tim Connelly defeating his old team? I think it's very unlikely. But the Doctor Strange and the Avengers, the one thing, if that one scenario happens, then you hang a banner. I don't know what Tim Connelly's cell is, but you retire his cell phone number in the rafters, and you just say that man did it. So long way to go, but to get here and to survive this season, it does. If you were going to crush this team if they lost tonight, and rightfully so, you have no choice but to give them some flowers for winning and advancing.
It's yes, dude, it is, and we'll reconvene. My guess is our next podcast will be just a recap of the first game of the Nuggets series at this point. I think this will probably stand as, all right, let's let this breathe here for a couple days. But so my first main takeaway is there are still a lot of things in front of them that they can accomplish. And they at least have done something that they haven't done in 19 years as a franchise, which is make the playoffs in back-to-back seasons, which is part of the reason why you bring in Rudy Gobert, who was really good tonight.
Yep.
my second main takeaway, because I dished a lot of criticism to him, and I stand by all of it, but when he performs the way he did tonight, and they blow the doors off Oklahoma City, he deserves praise. This was one of the best big game performances in Karl-Anthony Towns' career. And
correct.
There doesn't need to be any sort of yeah, but or period. It was one of the best big game performances of his career. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he does against the two-time reigning defending most valuable player, Nikola Jokic.
We'll leave everyone with this. I should have asked Judd, too, when we had him on. Better Minnesota quarterback, Kirk Cousins, or that full court pass Mike Conley had to Karl that ended with a Rudy Gobert dunk?
That was pretty good.
Because that was a pretty cool moment to, like, I mean, I'm so risk averse.
Well, Kirk would have checked down to Nickeil Alexander-Walker in the backcourt there. But yeah.
Congratulations! Thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks for hanging out with us here late in the. Now we're on to Saturday here, past midnight. And if you could, please click the subscribe button and the like button on this episode of Flagrant Howls on the Score North YouTube channel. Helps us spread the word about this awesome fan community you guys are helping us build. So appreciate you guys. Kyle, go pop another bottle, dude. It's only 10 o'clock on the West Coast. You got plenty of time.
West Coast, best coast. Let's keep going.
Plenty of time. All right, that is a wrap on this play-in recap episode of Flagrant Howls, your favorite Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.